Welcome to the Pastor's Podcast. This is Pastor Scott, and with me today as an extra special treat are Alina Sato. You can say hello. Sorry,
Hello.
I didn't even tell you that, but you can. And Niki Woosley.
Hello.
Niki, your husband Chris is one of our elders, one of our pastors, our newest. I was gonna say our youngest.
Youngest.
But you serve at Claris Health, right? And doing parenting programs and serving and helping to equip parents to be able to parent in the midst of all sorts of difficult circumstances. Your kids are a little bit older, right? So how old are your two?
16 and almost 13.
Wow, that is
Exciting.
You're talking about the trenches, like people talking about being in the trenches. That's just a different trench.
Different trench, yeah. Totally.
That's
but I
awesome.
wouldn't give for that 2-year-old trench. That's good stuff.
And Alina, you serve. I know you work a couple of days a week as a nurse, right? And are a just longtime faithful servant minister. Just a huge blessing to our church, and I know that so many people are blessed by your writing too. How old are your kids?
They are 7 and 5.
7 and 5, and so right at the beginning.
Yes. Welcome to school.
Welcome to school. It's on your couch. You've heard all these things about playgrounds and buildings, but actually, no. That's not what it's actually like. No.
You have the couch.
This wonderful tool called Zoom. It's gonna be magical. Kindergarten. That's the worst, right?
The
Like
worst.
kindergarten over Zoom. Anyways.
No.
Yeah.
Anyways, praying specifically for that. But that's why I'm really glad that you guys are here and glad we can talk about these things. So let's jump in. We're gonna be talking today about the really unique dynamic that is taking place actually particularly this week, which is the start of a new school year, the start of probably the strangest school year in our lives, with at least everyone here, starting the school year online, starting virtually, starting in their homes. Anybody doing public or private school, at least, right? Homeschoolers are kind of going back to normal in that sense. But for a lot of public and private school kids and parents, this is a really, really unique time. And I wanted to invite the two of you to talk together just a little bit about some of those dynamics, about how to think about that, how to put even our own anxieties and fears and stresses in perspective, and then go from there. So the new school year is going to be, I think, new and overwhelming for most people, if not everyone. What are some of the things that, as you guys have thought about this, that you think God wants us to keep in mind as we approach this coming school year, as parents, as students, really just for the sake of our own sanity and for the sake of keeping a God-centered focus? Actually, I'm going to let you answer in just a second. I realized I forgot. I left this on. I forgot to turn off the air conditioning. So now the hum is gone, and we'll try this again. Alina, what do you think?
I'm melting.
Yeah, it's like this room is kind of like a sauna, right? So turning the air conditioning off for the sake of sound is going to just make us stay nice and quick with our answers.
Focus.
That's right. All right, Alina.
Yeah, there's something that has stayed with me really all summer, and especially as this school year has approached. And it was actually inspired by something that our beloved Meredith Storrs had written a while ago about what if what we've been focusing on learning has been more about cultural tides than about what God actually wants for us, and what is it that I want to teach my child. And when I think about going into this school year, excuse me, I mean, I have been strict with my kids. Like, I have tried to keep them very much on task with their schoolwork and, keeping them focused on trying to learn real things. But with that said, I just have been asking myself, what if my focus really needs to be helping them understand that what's going to equip them for life in the long term is not this confidence and declaration that I have an education. So no matter what comes my way in life, I have this education to stand on, and so I'm going to be good. Because this pandemic has definitely taught us that that's not what's helping us cope. It certainly has its value, and it has its place, obviously, but what I want my kids to be able to come out proclaiming from this experience is not, oh, Mom just really made sure I had an education. Like, I want them to come out of this saying, we learned how to trust God. Like, we learned that God was in control, and that whatever we gained or lost in our education, God is still the one who empowers us and carries us and makes the way for us.
Well, it's so powerful. I mean, it helps us to see that this is, it's actually an opportunity. It's not just that we don't need to, it's not just that we are forced to learn something different than we had planned to learn in this grade or at this stage in life, but it's actually an opportunity to learn something. That is so helpful. What about you, Niki?
Yeah, that's actually what I've been thinking about, is what a unique opportunity that we have as parents, because as they get older, we have less influence because then it moves toward friends and school and things like that. But that's pretty much been removed at this point in this very strange moment that we find ourselves in. And so I think that we as parents have a really unique opportunity to step into that role again as like we always are the primary influence, but also the secondary and the tertiary, and we're the influence because we're there, and because of we're all stuck together. We have a really cool opportunity to just press in with our kids in different ways, like you were saying, and we wouldn't have had that otherwise.
I am going to cause you guys to melt if I don't turn that air conditioning back on, aren't I?
No, we're okay.
I'm okay.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay. It's just me. I'm just going to sit here and sweat. This is going to be awesome. Great podcast. Hey, you know what? I shouldn't even mention anything. You can't even notice this. I just didn't want to torture the two of you.
We'll feel great when we go outside.
That's
It'll feel nice with the breeze.
So, one of the things, and actually it just struck me. I hadn't even thought of this when I asked you to have this conversation together. I had this conversation, asked you to have this conversation because I know that just you've been thinking. I know that each of you have been thinking about how to navigate this well, both on your own and also for the sake of those around you as you're ministering and teaching others. But it struck me, even as you were saying that, as Niki, that as we are these primary influencers that are trying to navigate this together, I think it's easy sometimes for people. We have parents that are in all sorts of different situations, right? Some that are able to work from home, some that are not, some that are some mothers and fathers that stay at home anyways, and so have an opportunity to do that. But both of you work outside the home as well, and so are navigating this with all of those unique challenges and tensions as you're trying to juggle and fit that. Even if it's part-time and in different sections, like trying to fit that all together. But each unique opportunity that each unique family has isn't like it's not like one family can take advantage of this season and another one can't. Like we all have this unique opportunity to both trust God and to teach our kids what it looks like to trust God in the situation that God sovereignly, perfectly, uniquely has called us, has placed us. And I think that's I think exciting and ought to be hope giving. I guess the reason I mentioned it is, as you were saying that, I think that there's a lot of things that can pop up in our minds that say, okay, yeah, maybe for you, but not for me. And I think that there's actually a reason that no matter what situation we're in, there's a ton of hope and opportunity that this season provides.
Definitely.
Which I want to make sure we all hear and remember as well. So one of the questions, and I kind of threw this out to you earlier because I wanted you just to think through it. What are some of the unique temptations we ought to be careful of as we approach this school year? I think I think every school year, every situation comes with its own unique temptation. I think this one comes with some unique temptations. what might some of those be, just to even help us think about that?
One of the ones for me, and I've been hearing this from other people as well, is this temptation towards comparison or envy. And part of it, I think, is connected to the fact that everyone is in very different circumstances. And because we only know the challenges unique to ours, it's that classic, the grass is always greener on the other side, right? Like, if I just wasn't home all the time with my kids and could go to a job for, for me, 2 days a week, that would be really helpful. Or for me, when I'm trying to juggle the going to work and coming home and doing all the things, it's, if I could just focus on this one thing with my kids, then it would be easier. And, whether it's social media, people trying to just share ideas, but then we kind of can go into this rabbit hole of, oh gosh, they just seem to be doing this so much better. Or people are trying to be positive and encouraging. And if you're feeling down and you look at that and you're like, well, I'm just sinking even more, like I can't even keep my spirits up, and they just seem super positive all the time. And I think there's just a real easy way to sort of spiral with that sometimes, that we just have to pay very close attention to and make sure that, we're aware we're not seeing the whole picture of what each person is actually experiencing.
Absolutely. Okay, so when I spiral in comparison, right? I mean, I think that a lot of us can resonate that. Like, what should I do? Like, where do we try? How do we try to stop that, even practically, and even over the next couple of weeks? Or maybe what's one practical thing I could do to, when that spiral of comparison hits, when that temptation hits, like one place I could turn to even just give me a little bit of to help kind of stop the spiral, right? To help kind of take a step back.
I mean, I know for me, like, if I know what my triggers are, like, it's just every time I seem to get on social media, I'm just starting to feel this way, then it might be a good sign of, I should probably spend some time off of this and reach out. If you're saying, what is one thing I can do or turn to, reach out to a trusted friend and say, I'm starting to just have this voice in my head, and I just need some perspective on it because I can't seem to step outside myself right now. And so can you just speak into my life and help me just kind of get out of this spiral for a minute, because my thoughts just want to keep like taking me down if I just keep following where they want to go. And so I think to have a trusted godly friend be able to catch that with truth and scripture and encouragement and prayer, that's really helpful.
Yeah. It reminds me of just the importance of being in community, right? Of being in conversation with one another. Like we have to fight even in the midst of that. Like, I think it feel overwhelming that like I've got to manage all of this and try to like stay in touch with my friends, but just people to confess to, people to lament to, people to who can and see and point that in. Point those things to us, and just recognizing the times of day, the triggers, the things that are familiar that end up pointing us there.
Because if we don't reach out to community, then that's all we see is the perfect whatever social media is putting out there. That's so true. It's so funny though, because you took it to such a beautiful place, and of course when I heard what are the temptations, as a parent of older children, all I kept thinking of was last semester was so hard because there was a lot of Roblox played in my house instead of math, science, language arts, whatever. So I think there are like even practical temptations that our kids face just due to the nature of what this distance learning is. And so sometimes I think the way that I get stuck in my head is I'm just trying to manage all this, and I don't even know what's going on out there, but that's its own sort of spiral too.
Yeah. yeah, I think there's a big temptation to just kind of feel justified in being myopic, right? And just like, okay, wait, when things get hard, it's like, oh, okay, this season is okay to just be selfish, right? And sometimes we do have to focus inward and kind of just buckle down and take care of things. But I think that God's still calling us forward, which actually I think leads me into some of the other things I wanted to talk about, which are some of the opportunities that aren't just survival geared, but are actually opportunities of to bless others in this season, to recognize that we're all going through this together, that those we're interacting with are going through this too. I mean, when you think about just the teachers, the administrators, even the school board members, like we've talked about, Niki, right, that are not trying to navigate this, what are some ways that we might be able to just bless them and be a light in this moment towards those that are serving our kids, engaging our kids as teachers, administrators, or others?
Yeah. I feel like the biggest thing that we need to have for everyone right now, for ourselves, for our kids, for our teachers, administrators, everybody, is grace, because like you said, we are literally all going through this together. And it's not like, oh, it's going to be, easy for the teachers, but not for the parents or whatever. It's difficult for everybody in so many ways. And so I think, yes, back in the olden days, I could encourage a teacher and be like, hey, you're doing a great job. And that means something. But I think now even more so, because they're going through it and all they're probably getting is, negative feedback. And I think even just those moments of, reaching out to them and saying, hey, I know this is hard for you too, could be really powerful.
That actually reminds me, and it may have been, Alina, one of the things that just put you in my mind as I was thinking about these things. I don't know, whatever it was last week, we were on a Zoom, an elementary school Zoom, with the principal, who was trying to, describe what the school year is going to be like and trying to answer questions. And she was taking questions fast and furious through the Zoom chat module. Wow. And somebody else was trying to give her the questions from the chat. And all I kept thinking was, oh man, if that were me, I would not allow any of I wouldn't answer any of those. I don't know. And she was so gracious. And all I could think was, I'm so glad she's my kid's principal and I'm not. Because I mean, she had this really, she was so patient. It was incredible. And into this barrage of questions came, and I don't remember, it was the beginning, I don't remember, but this and it wasn't just a word of encouragement, but this thoughtful, there's a couple sentences of encouragement from Alina Sato that said, Dr. Hodge, I just thank you so much for all the work you're doing. We just want you to know how much so many of us appreciate it. And it was into the mix of this Zoom chat box, it was this breath of fresh air. It was this beam of light that I thought in just a small way exemplified countless opportunities we're going to have. Even if we disagree with their decisions, right? Even if a superintendent or a principal or even a teacher, right, is making a decision, or a teacher's you're I want my kids to be back in school, and the teacher's I do not want to be teaching it, and you're what, we're on man, we view this really differently, even, and maybe even especially if we don't see things exactly the same. This provides a huge opportunity to express, the fruit of the Spirit, right? Meekness, kindness, definitely, goodness, gentleness, which I think is going to be increasingly, and it continues to be increasingly in short supply in the world. They're going to know we're Christians by our love, right?
And there's also a temptation too, I think, to be disconnected from their school. And so this is a cool opportunity to be connected, because otherwise everybody's just going to step out, and it's good luck, teachers. But for us to reach back in and be hey, how can I support you? How can I pray for you? I think that's probably going to be pretty rare.
Yeah. I mean, I think because it is such a myopic time, I think it's really easy to settle into a mentality of, I just think I need what I need and I want what I want. And for you, teachers, administrators, I just want you to do your job. Like whatever we think that is, like it's easy to just start like getting a little bit overly pushy about that sometimes. And I think the way that Christ would have us approach people is, how can I serve you? Like, how can I come around you and lift you up and support you and not just demand things from you? And quite honestly, I mean, it's still a moment by moment thing for me too. I mean, I just today found out who my second graders teacher was going to be. And the first thing that came to my mind was, who is this teacher? How does she do? What's her style? Is she going to be okay for us?
Yeah.
And then I had to take a step back and say, maybe I should be thinking together with this, if not more, how can I pray for this teacher? How can I support her? How can I serve her? Instead of, how can I kind of
evaluate her and figure out how I feel about this. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's just such a natural response for us. I think God's calling us to this deeper, this wider, this bigger vision and opportunity. And I mean, I felt similarly. We were having this conversation with our kids, and I think that's where we jump, right? Like, oh, is that going to be a good fit? Like, and you remember, oh wait, like the Lord in his perfect sovereignty, in his knowledge of what's best, both for us and for that teacher, like placed us together for this season.
Yeah. And
we were just put in the same, capsule in the midst of a crisis, and so, but it wasn't just random, right? It was done intentionally, and what a huge and unique opportunity that is. That's so so helpful. Which I think actually relates to. So there's the teachers and administrators, those who are serving in that capacity. I think this is an opportunity to bless them. What about the families around us, even the families in our school who have less support, who maybe are in more difficult situations during this time? I think, Niki, in your role in Claris, you have eyes on and are serving and are connecting with. I know a lot more families that are really struggling in the midst of this than I am, and this is one of the questions, actually, to be completely honest, I've just really been wrestling with. Because the answer's not obvious. And I'm not sure if there's a good one but I think it's a question we need to be increasingly asking, not just being like, well, I don't know, I can't really think of anything, so I guess I'll just move on. Like, how can we serve and bless and step into the lives of those who are particularly struggling in our community, in our schools, in our classes, just, even in our neighborhoods?
Yeah. That's such a great question. And there's so much difficulty that I think so many people are facing, from not only people who have to work and have little kids. I don't know how you're going to do that. Yeah. Or, to I have some clients with they're about to give birth and they have a son with special needs. And how can a one-on-one aid in a Zoom help as they're supposed to in real life? There's just so many difficulties, but I think too that it comes back to like that willingness, like to reach out and be like, hey, I don't actually know, what can help you, but I noticed that you might have some unique challenges. I'm just wondering what your plans are for this year. Do you need help? Does your kid need to come sit in my patio and work so you can go to work? Or I don't know. Like, I'm with you. I don't know what the answers are, but I think certainly they've been thinking it, maybe even more than us. So just the willingness to ask, and then like if they have an idea, like be willing to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I've struggled too with that same question. There's part of me that has wondered, can I go to the principal and ask, like, are there they've got to know about families that are in need. And maybe we could just flat out ask the principals or the teachers, like, without breaking confidentiality, is there something more above and beyond that I can do or my church can do to help support these people that you guys know about and I don't, but you can be sort of the go-between. I've been thinking about this family, a mother-child duo who I met when my older child was in kindergarten. And it was quite clear on many levels that they were in a very difficult situation. And I got to know the mom a little bit. And she shared with me some of what was going on with them and her challenges with her child and being a single parent. And at least when school was still going on, from my conversations with her, gleaned where she worked. I have seen her on a Zoom call, and I was trying to private chat with her on the Zoom call, but I guess the school district, they don't allow you to do that.
That's
so
probably
I couldn't,
wise.
yeah. But in this case, it was supposed to be a good
it was
thing.
supposed to be a good thing. Yeah.
Not a creepy.
But it made me think of her and think, well, would it be super creepy if I went to where she works and just say I don't mean to stalk you.
Yeah.
I've just been thinking about you and I haven't known how else to find you. So I thought I'd check to see if you were still here, working here. And obviously if I'm having this conversation with her, she's still there, but, and then just, what can I do? And to be completely honest, I think that it has actually been, more of there's a lot of logistical challenges in extending myself that way, but I think that there's been a deeper heart issue that God is still working on with me of, if I do that and if I find her, then I am committing myself to getting involved in what I know to be a pretty messy situation.
Yeah.
And am I willing to do that, and figuring out wisdom in that. But it's been a very interesting sort of heart thing to sort of process through, how much would I extend myself to somebody who is in some really tight situations right now?
Yeah, I think that's so helpful, and I really appreciate your honesty in that, because I think I really resonate with that. And as I've wrestled through this question over and over, I think, and continued to, I think there's a convenience to the fact that says, well, it's probably not safe COVID wise to engage with anybody. So I probably, you know what, I would do something, but I just can't.
Yeah.
And the reality is, if it was my, if this was my niece or nephew, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
I would.
No questions.
I would. If it was another family in my community group, I would.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we need to do that for everyone, right? We can't do that for everyone. We all have limitations, and some of us can't do anything, right? We're just drowning in. But I think that there's a lot of us, and I know myself included, I've before the Lord, as I've been praying about this recently, even over the past week, it's a question that I feel like He continues to impress upon me. It's really important you don't stop asking this question. It's really important you don't just settle into, well, I kind of thought about it, but it was too hard. This requires a unique amount of creativity. It's going to require, on one side, the plus also is that much less is awkward because it's all so weird.
Totally.
And I don't know what that means for anybody specifically, but I do think that as ambassadors of Christ who've been placed here, I think we've been placed here in this season, in this moment for a reason, and that he wants us to ask the questions. He wants us to ask one another. He wants us to even just start with praying, just an honest, sincere prayer that says, Lord, I want to sacrifice for others. Will you show me? It's a dangerous prayer, right? Because He'll answer it.
Totally.
But I think it's a great place to start, and one that I think helps us to see the unique opportunity that this moment is for the gospel, which I think it's really easy to forget as well. I think again, it's just easy to get into survival mode. Forget that this is a unique opportunity for the gospel, which doesn't mean that we need to do more, and that people need to feel added pressure. You're starting school this week, and so we want to tell you that you should be doing a bunch more things for other people too.
Good
Like,
luck.
obviously, that's not my heart, but I do think that in the midst of that complexity, it puts us in this space where wait, I'm out of control. Okay, Lord, will you just lead the way? Like, will you just as we've been trying to prepare for our kids to start school and their schedules, and Laura's actually doing some sub-librarian work, and so she's going to be gone out of the house way more than I was expecting 2 weeks ago, and I'm working from home, and the kids, and so I'm like, okay, like all weekend I've been like making schedules. Like I've made an entire Excel sheet for each day.
Battle
just
plan.
for there's like a Scott schedule and a Laura schedule and a Harper schedule and a Addison and Lincoln and Scott, and actually and there's an Amir schedule, because I need to know like when he can like take somebody somewhere, like whatever, and to try to like put all this together. And one of the things that was really interesting was I think the Lord was reminding me, this planning's good. Like, I'm glad you're thinking through these things. These logistics are helpful, but this isn't going to save you. It's not going to make it happen. It's not even the perfect plan isn't what's going to lead you in my path. Like, I want you to make a plan, but then I want you to step into the day dependent on me. I know he's been reminding me this over and over. I want you to step into the day dependent on me, and I'm going to direct your path. Right? This is the Proverbs, right? We just read it, whatever it is, Proverbs 3, with the kids the other night. A man plans his way, but the Lord directs his step. And I think being open to that in this season, being dependent on that, and even seeking that, as ethereal as that is, but is a powerful way forward, I think, for all of us. Well, with that, any closing just thoughts for students or parents as they go back to school? If you had an opportunity, you have a unique opportunity to speak to all the parents who are sending kids back to school, maybe students that are listening in the car. If you were to just leave them with an encouragement or with an exhortation, I was going to say not to put you on the spot, but that's all I'm doing is putting you on the spot. So there's not. What would you say to them?
Alina's going to have something much more beautiful to say, but I just want you guys to know, again, I just come back to grace. You're not going to be the most perfect parent during this time. You're really not. You're going to fail every single day. You're not going to be the most perfect child. You're going to fail every single day. You're not going to be the most perfect student, teacher, administrator, employee. You are just not. So we need to let go of that and enter into that dependence on God every single day. Otherwise, there's obviously no way we can do this myopically, but there's no way we can do this together either. So yeah, just be okay with that and have grace for everybody, because we are all in this together.
We are.
Yeah. And I think along that theme of really being dependent on God, it's not just so that he can help us through this season, and then when we come out of it, it's like, oh, I'm so glad I have my normal school to lean back on, and I have my my social life back again, and I have all the other things that I rightfully have missed and loved and play an important part in my life, but to say, well, then I just don't need God that much anymore, because my quote unquote normal life has come back to me. I think if we can look at this time as, oh my gosh, everything has just been shaken, and I'm dependent on God for this unique time, but I'm also just finding how beautiful he is and how complete he is, and how he is really our only true life, that when we come out of this, we actually hold these other things a little bit more loosely and are glad to celebrate them and glad to get back into them, but we have gained this depth and richness with God that we're not too quick to just forget or cast off when things hopefully sometime return to normal, but our hearts hopefully will have changed for the better.
Yeah.
See, I told you. Beautiful.
So good, and so helpful. And I'm just so thankful for you both. The thought that comes to my mind is I think also I was thinking about those of you that are homeschool families, right? And what a unique opportunity this is for you too, to like both know. I mean, I want everybody to know that we are praying fervently for you, and we're praying fervently for you, particularly this week, whatever schooling you're engaging in, and whether you're a long-time homeschool family or you're homeschooling right now for the first time because that's what makes the most sense in this situation. I know that we're praying for you too, and also know that that doesn't like exempt you from the unique opportunities. I think a lot, especially those of you who are experienced in homeschooling, have a whole host of like unique opportunities to bless those around you. Oh, and I think in one way it's like easiest to think about that like with the logistics, right? Like send us blog posts or schedules or like things that you were. And I think those logistics are helpful. But I think even more than that, like just the opportunity to I think even more than a lot of us, like what's coming and how hard this is going to be week 4 and week 5 and week 6, that like so that when to reach out, when to nurture those relationships, so that we can depend on one another, so we can serve one another, and so that we can strive all together to be the light God's calling, the light on the hill God's called us to, even in this season. So well, we can talk about this more and more, but I hope actually, and like a lot of our podcasts, we hope more than anything, this is a conversation starter, not an ender, but something that'll steer you in a certain direction, and then that you in your community groups and your relationships and your interactions with one another will continue this and spur one another on with even just deeper, more beautiful thoughts together as well. So thank you so much, Alina and Niki, for the time, for your sacrifice in the midst of everything else going on, to just sit down and minister to our church family this way. It's such a blessing. And thank you so much for listening. We know that we are praying for you. We're praying fervently for you, and we're praying for you, especially this week. And we'll see you virtually on Sunday.